Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey guys, John Davis here, and I am here today with the lovely Tamara Zoner, and I am so thrilled that we're actually getting something right today because I screwed up royally last time we tried to record this, and so now, as you guys may notice, that I am very transparent about my screw ups and the things that I mess up because the reason I'm transparent about it is for a very specific reason, and the reason is I don't want you guys to think that we think we're better than you. I want you to see that we are also having those moments of brain farts. Right? So, because nobody is better than anybody else and everybody messes up sometimes, give yourself permission to be fallible. All right. So, today, we're Tamara, and I'll say hello to her in a second. Today, we're going to talk about something known as addiction, and that'll be an interesting topic when it pertains to spirituality itself. But good morning, Tamara Zoner. How are you this morning?
Good morning, John Davis. I'm doing all right. I have my cup of love, and it's going to kick in about halfway through this. So,
well, as I told you,
speaking of addiction,
as I told you this morning, I already bowed at the altar of Juan Valdez. So now I'm trying to hydrate with lots of water.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I've got my orange juice water mix right next to me too.
Did I ever tell you the story about my friend Todd when we were on the USO tours? He and I were the coffee drinkers. And every morning we would get up and everybody else would still be asleep and we would be on our frantic search for coffee. And he'd find that first cup and he'd get that first cup and he'd go, "Oh, dark mother, once again I suckle at thy teat."
Wow, that's some serious coffee worship. That is definitely addiction.
Well, I stole that line and have used that line for years because of that. I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
It is a very funny line.
Addiction. So we're talking about addiction today. Let me ask you a simple question. How does addiction and spirituality go together?
Good question. Well,
Maybe it's not so simple.
I mean, everything is simple when you break it down. And ultimately, we are searchers in this human experience. And we're searching and seeking for something outside of ourselves most often. As we've talked about, we can logically know that everything we need is within us, and yet still we seek outside of ourselves. And when we can't find that thing to fill the hole that we feel like we're born with, we start using things to fill that hole. And I think that is where addiction, in whichever form it comes into play spiritually. Because if I'm trying to fill a hole and I'm using shopping or gambling or sex or relationships or Netflix or coffee, pizza. Yep. Oh, pizza, cheese.
Cheese. Oh, stop.
Or then, the harder substances like drugs and alcohol, then that is never going to fill that hole. It will never fill that hole. And the spiritual journey, I believe, takes place when we realize that it's not going to fill the hole. And then we have to come out on the other side of that addiction if that is what we're meant to do this particular time around.
Right. I completely agree with everything you said. And I want to take it one step further. Mm-hmm. As I am often quoting, I believe what John said when he said God is love. And I also believe what Buddha said when he said the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. Mm-hmm. So for me, if God is love, I believe that we are here to experience God in its fullest. And the only way you can experience anything is to know the opposite or to have a baseline to measure from. And so for me, I really truly believe that we come to this space, this world, wanting to know and experience our source, God, consciousness, blah, 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 whatever you call it, yada, yada. Well, let's just call it yada, yada. God is yada, yada.
We're going to call it yada yada from now on.
Yada, yada. So if that's the case, if we're here to truly experience God by going through our fears, then addiction has to come from a very interesting place. Now, I have a big theory on addiction.
Okay,
And
let's hear it.
okay, so my theory on addiction is very simple. We all want to have that feeling of love, that expression. Now, when I say that, a lot of people think it's romantic love. No, it's just love. It's love, acceptance, it's joy, right? So people want to have that feeling inside of themselves because love is a feeling. It really is. And so people who have had experiences in their life where they can't experience that, or they feel they can't experience that, or feel they're not worthy of that, or have dropped into those fears so deeply that they can't see a way out, they look for something that gives them something that feels like that, or that simulates that feeling. So they look for something to give them that feeling. Now, from my background in neurolinguistics and everything, I know that the exhalation of your breath releases the fight or flight response. It releases the fear response. That's why when you look in religions and spirituality, you find the breath of God. You find breathing in yoga. You find chanting, which is breathing with sound, right? You find breathing everywhere. So when you look at say, for instance, someone who's addicted to their cups of coffee at Tamara's owner, right?
Not true. But
Not
today,
true,
yes.
Me neither.
It's on this week, though, for sure.
So they take that cup of coffee, they get it in their hand, and they and they allow themselves to relax, and they breathe out. And then you get that smoker, and he gets that cigarette in his hand. I've never smoked in my life, by the way, so I have to use. I smoke pens. So you like the pen? And then you get the alcoholic who goes to the bar and he gets a drink and he goes. The substance gives them permission to exhale and relax. Well, love is found in that exhalation. Love is that feeling of that desire, that yada yada is right there in that exhalation. It's that feeling of being completely free of anxiety and fear. And so by having a substance that you have now given the power to, now, I can't get love for myself this way or that way or that way, and I'm not worthy of that person's love or this person's love. And instead of giving them the power of taking your love away, you now have something that you can give the power to that gives you the feeling that's a substitute.
Right,
so for
and
me,
you can use it when you want to, which gives you the power.
Right, exactly.
But then when it becomes, so therein lies the rub. When you're using it, and it's your choice, then it's your choice. But then you cross that line into addiction, and that is where you no longer have the power. Now that substance or that activity or that behavior has the power over you instead. And I know you had something else to say, but I want to backtrack a little bit.
No, you're great. Keep going.
Because
but before you backtrack, let me just say, I could not like you any more than when you just quoted Shakespeare. So keep going.
I love Shakespeare.
Oh my God! I direct those plays all the time. It's my
I
favorite.
bet. Ooh, we'll have to have conversations about that. But I want to go back to, you said people are trying to find love, and I have a slightly different perspective. It's close, but what I think leads to addiction is an attempt to find relief from the pain of not feeling loved or worthy of love.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's not.
I think it's kind of the same thing, except
it is. It's really close.
Different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really close.
They're lost in their fears, so they're looking for some way out.
Yes.
And it gives you that release.
And then depending on what they're doing, it gives them that little buzz, that little like, ooh, this is good, and that's why they do it again and again and again, seeking outside of themselves to find that fullness that they're not experiencing on their own.
I think what you just said is profound, because you said they're seeking outside of themselves. Well, you know, in Christianity, there's a little spoken quote. They very rarely use it. It's um, the pathway to heaven is through your own door.
Oh, I
Um,
like that.
and it's like you literally have to walk through your own door. I often say there was a teacher I used to have who used to say, when you look for a path will be laid before you, but
Hmm.
until you turn your path back to yourself, you'll never find true happiness,
Hmm.
right? And which is source, right? You got to come back to who you are and go within yourself. And like all of the stuff that gives you those fears and those anxieties that hold you back, that you need the comfort from or the release from, those are just your fears that are manifested in your life.
Hmm.
And Jesus would say, be born again. Set those fears down and move towards something different. Set
Hmm.
those fears down and move towards another experience. So it's really kind of an interesting topic, because how do we take them from being in that space of needing that relief and that thing that gives them the comfort to just having it?
Good. Another good question, John. You're full of them today.
I'm throwing the hard ones to you today.
I know. You really make me think. Um, well, you said earlier you were talking, and it made me think contrast. I believe that we, as soul on a soul level, make a choice to come into a human experience, and that is my perspective. And and I feel like we make that choice knowing that there's something we want to learn, or like we want to kind of level up, right? And so we make a choice. And so it's that contrast. So we have to experience in order to say, oh, okay, so this is the one I need to experience, but I don't want to feel. So how do I get to the one I'm actually here to learn? And for some people, maybe by soul choice, maybe, ancestral DNA coming through them, it is an addiction that is going to get them through that lesson. And maybe in this life they won't overcome it and they'll repeat the lesson. That's what I also believe. Like, if we forget why we came through in this human form this time around, then we may just have to do it again. And we'll talk about that. That's an upcoming topic, right? Reincarnation.
Right.
And so we have to remember uh, why we're here. And it's going to be really tricky to do that depending on what the addiction is, right? If you are completely zoning out with drugs or alcohol, then remembering what you're here to learn is going to be really, really hard. But I feel like, there's this inner urging that comes through all of us, or the universe will work in our favor one way or another to remind us and to break us free one way or another of the addiction. It might be pretty damn dramatic,
Mm.
it might be
Right.
a life or death moment, as it has been for a good friend of mine. She was heavy into addiction on the way to killing herself. And it was a liver transplant that saved her life and started her sober. And, and so now she lives purposefully, but she had a life or death wake up call. And I don't know how she thinks of this, but to me, it's very much like, hey, what did you choose to come down here for? And will you fulfill it or will you waste it? And she's
Mm.
fulfilling it. She is rocking her life now. And it's a beautiful example of how we can sink to the depths of our souls in a dark way, and then be given a path toward the light in
Right.
the
Right.
lifetime.
We all have our own personal journeys that we have to go through,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's interesting because the people who feel so disempowered in their life by having those struggles, they they really don't feel like they have the power to go within, or to,
Mm-hmm.
they really feel like they're not worthy. Jesus would say, "Be born again," and I can tell you from experience. Now, at 22 years old, I picked up a box of clay and turned around, and my upper body separated from my lower body, and I collapsed and was paralyzed.
Oh my
And
God.
I was told flat out by a doctor that you're done. He said you have spina bifida occulta, and what happened today was your upper spine disconnected and pinched off your spinal column. And um, I got to my darkest places, right?
Hmm.
But what was really interesting about that, I look at that moment where I was in such excruciating pain as the greatest moment of my life right now, because of the fact that after that, I went to 30 countries around the world. I climbed Machu Picchu. I was in the pyramids of Giza. I swam the blue lagoons of Iceland.
So
I
cool.
I became a stuntman, a fight director, a comedy sword fighting show I put together all over the world. I just there's a list of there's more and more college professors, so on, so blah blah, right?
Hmm.
But it was that moment where I was able to take my own power that gave me that moment. So when someone's in an addiction, they really need to find a way to find that moment. And I really think
Hmm.
finding that moment is as simple as claiming your breath. Literally, if you when you're sitting here in the present moment and you're looking for that big goal, that big outcome where you have that love or you have that feeling,
Hmm.
that thing will never magically appear in your moment. It's the small present moments that build. So if you think about it from a psychological level, you have your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your future is just where you set goals, right?
Hmm.
And the interesting thing about that is your past is just memories of present moments. So there is only one moment that you live, and it's the I am moment, as they would say in spirituality. I am, right? And
Hmm.
so your goals that you set for your future are literally just plans for future I am moments. And your past is just memories of I am moments. But the past, you have the ability to change right now, right? The future is always going to be malleable because you're going to find new things all as you're going along your path.
Hmm.
But the more you do things here present and rack these little small successes in, to break addiction, you don't have to think it has to happen all at once.
Right.
Just start taking small steps. And so instead of going for a smoke break today, instead of going for 5 smoke breaks today, go for 4 and have 1 breathing break.
Hmm.
And then go for 3 and have 2 breathing breaks. And just go out and breathe deep and exhale and allow your body to relax. And that's a start. It's a way to get out of the function because it also gives you the power of saying, no, this time I'm just going to breathe.
Hmm.
And then now you've started stacking successful present moments behind you, which creates a new subconscious belief because now you
Absolutely.
have successful empowered moments. And that big giant future you want is now coming to you and going to surround your experience. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and I love it. And I was thinking, as you were talking about, replacing one smoke break with a breath break, which I love that term,
Mhm.
breath break. I actually used that yesterday, strangely enough.
Did you really?
I did. I did an Instagram reel, and I called it. I said, "Okay, let's take a breath break."
Nice.
um, and because it's so important, we can't just drop habits. We our brain makes space for them, and we need to replace them, not just get rid of them, because it doesn't work if we just try to get rid of them. We have to replace them with something better. So, for instance, I made a choice at 10 years old to never become addicted to anything because I witnessed addiction at that age. And so, I joked about the coffee. We joked about the coffee earlier today, but I periodically give up coffee for sometimes months at a time because I don't want my body to be physically dependent on anything. This
Right.
week I'm still in cold recovery, which is in fact what launched this topic of addiction, because I had the Advil cold and sinus for the first time, and thought, man, I get it because I felt so good that day. uh, but I made this conscious choice to never become addicted. And so periodically, if I feel like I'm becoming dependent on caffeine waking me up or wine relaxing me, then I will just stop it for a length of time. And I'll replace. So yes, I have coffee next to me, but I also have orange juice and sparkling water. So when I go off alcohol for a while, I I replace it. I drink my sparkling water out of a wine glass because I like that habit, especially as I'm cooking dinner. Like I really enjoy this wine glass in my hand. I just like wine glasses, so I drink out of them all the time. And so it's replacing it. So I don't feel like there's a gaping hole. I'm still engaging in the ceremony of the habit. And I think a lot of us also get addicted to the ceremony of a habit. Uh,
Right.
you know,
Right. The dogma of habit.
yeah,
Right.
yes.
That's all ceremony is dogma.
Mm,
And ceremony is dogma is ceremony and traditions. But the other thing that I find interesting about your story is that you think you can. You are empowered.
mm-hmm.
And that empowerment is huge. And you say the words and and you believe it. You feel, to to jump on your train, I'm gonna throw a Shakespeare quote out. Um, Claudius, lamenting the killing of his brother, says, "Words without thoughts never to heaven go."
Oh.
And you have to have belief behind what you're saying and doing. And I think addiction takes that belief in self away. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that they need to. It's the belief in self. And I think the way you find belief in self spiritually is creating successful I am moments. And so you create successful I am moments by saying, okay, I am not going to drink coffee today, or I am going to drink decaf.
Yes, or
You
I
know,
am going to do yoga instead,
right,
or
right,
take a walk, or
right,
have orange juice.
right. And then
Yeah.
you're stacking these awesome present moments behind you, these awesome
Mm,
I am moments behind you that are giving you not only that subconscious belief, because that subconscious mind will show you uh, the the outer experience. That inner voice we all hear
mm-hmm.
is based on subconscious belief.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can stack present moments that are successful in your subconscious mind behind you, your inner voice will tell you much better things.
I love that. I also want to say that I do believe as well that some people are here to be our example. Like they've made a soul level choice. Maybe we've made an agreement on a soul level to be an example for one another. So, that person who showed me what addiction looked like at a very young age, maybe our soul agreement was that he would do that so that I would never become addicted to anything. And then I would be able to fulfill my life's purpose of
Hmm.
bringing more joy and happiness into the world.
Right.
Because if addiction blocked that path for me, how would I do that? And so I remembered. I remembered what I was supposed to learn. You know,
Right.
maybe
I,
after that I was fresh as 10 years old, but you know.
being grateful for those moments of adversity and the people that bring those to you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
my father was a drinker and an emotional abuser, and he had 7 kids, and I was the one he didn't like. And of all the brothers and sisters, I was the one that got picked on and was told was worthless and a piece of crap and a bum and all those things. I was it was a huge emotional struggle. And when he passed away, I had a huge guilt trip because the first thing I said when my sister said Dad died, I said, "Oh, thank God,"
Mm-hmm.
because it was like such a release from me. But I look back now and I'm like, yeah, he was terrible to me. He was horrible to me, but he also forced me to become very independent. It also forced me to go off and do my own thing. And I would not have done all the things I've done were it not for, him being such a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so on, I don't have to like what he did,
Right.
but I can appreciate how it changed me and the choices that I made because of what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job now as a parent is to make sure that I don't give my son the same experience I had and empower him in positive ways
Mm-hmm.
rather than through negative traumatic experiences.
Absolutely. And earlier you said something about changing the past into I am moments. And I think what you just said about gratitude is exactly how we do that. I'm also very grateful for not for the in the moment experiences, but I'm very grateful that I witnessed addiction and made that choice because of
Right.
it to never be addicted to anything. And addiction runs in my family,
Right.
long lines of addicts, one way or another. Not a ton of terrible stories, but there's definitely alcoholism, and there's definitely just got to have that 5 o'clock drink or
Mm-hmm.
gambling or shopping or whatever. And so I think that gratitude brings the lens change to those past experiences
Right.
and changes them into something positive.
Right. Gratitude is like the essence of that feeling of love. I
Oh,
mean,
for
if you
sure.
yeah, it's like, oh my God, I feel so grateful for that. I feel loved because if you're grateful for something, something has happened to make you feel grateful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something has given you an outer positive influence, right? And now
Yeah.
your gratitude, you're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so free from all that anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
I know those moments where especially during this past year, where the speaking gigs kind of went away, right? And the money
Mm-hmm.
started to get a little tight there for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that next gig would come in, and it was like, oh God, thank God, I'm so grateful that these gigs came in. Now, just a little bit off topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're all stressed about COVID-19 and what's happened over this past year, but just to show you guys that the light is starting to shine at the end of that tunnel, I booked 3 speaking gigs this week,
Nice.
and so they're really coming back, and they're coming back strong. So you need to make sure. Like I leave today for Nashville. I actually have an event coming up in Michigan, which is interesting,
Ooh.
and over your neck of the woods, Tamara, and um, but I they're coming up. I've got ones here locally. I've got one. But just realize that right now you can drop into addiction because of the circumstances we've been in over the past year.
Mm-hmm.
But the light is at the end of the tunnel. We're coming out of it. There's no need to get addicted into something to make you feel better now. Now we can
Mm-hmm.
start to release. Now, today is a new day. And as I said in one of our other videos, your choices today create better tomorrows, create your tomorrow. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
I wrote that down.
your,
I have it on my desk now. I love that quote.
so whatever choice you make today will give you that subconscious belief. You can break any addiction. You have the power. You can awaken what I would call the inner action hero. You
Mm-hmm.
know, go out there and awaken your power and go on. So how are we going to end this thing here, Miss Zoner?
Well, we're going to end it first of all by saying if you are experiencing addiction, reach out for help. It is there for you, whatever the addiction is. If you're not sure who to reach out to us and we will help you find resources. And secondly, I want to say, let's end it with gratitude. Gratitude showers us with this experience of love and fills that hole that we may feel like is there. And when we practice gratitude on a regular basis, it fills us up with joy and love, and it really can change the perception that we have of those past moments into something beautiful. So I would encourage everyone to practice gratitude. We could probably do a whole talk on that too. I can do a whole talk on that for sure. I have.
Well,
could,
I mean, that's why you make the big money, right?
right, and that could be another episode because it is a spiritual experience.
Right.
But to close this episode of our podcast, I will extend my gratitude to you, John Davis, for always asking interesting questions. And to our listeners for being here. Please, we would be even more grateful if you would like and subscribe and share our podcast and let us know how you experience gratitude. We'd also appreciate hearing your stories of addiction and overcoming it and inspiring others around you to do the same.
Yeah.
Thank
Actually,
you.
that'd be a great first step. If you are addicted, just start talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Absolutely.
start, make yourself seen.
Yes, because you're worth it. You are worthy of this life and of love.
Great way to end it. See ya.
All right, bye.
For comments and suggestions, please visit us on Facebook at Spirit Cafe Podcast. Also, find us on YouTube to watch the video of this podcast at Spirit Cafe Podcast. And finally, visit us at spiritcafepodcast.com.